Hello and welcome. This is Deb Hoekstra and I'm here with a video about Sponging 101. We're going to talk all about sponging on our Stampin' Up card and paper projects. And what you see here are the two types of sponges that Stampin' Up sells. They sell the sponge dauber, which is a plastic tube that's hollow on the inside, and you can stick your finger in it like this. And then the top here has a foam sponge on it that you use on your projects. And then they also sell these great round sponges. They're made for arts and crafts, and you get 2 to a pack, or was it 3 to a pack? I can't remember now. I will double check on that and put it on the scroll bar on the video. But what I like to do is I like to cut the big sponges into wedges like this, and use a smaller piece. It's easier for me to handle. So I'm going to be demonstrating some sponging techniques today. I'm going to be using rich raspberry ink. And before I get started, I want to show you what I do with my sponges. Now, Stampin' Up recommends that you rinse out your sponges after each use. However, I assign certain sponges to certain colors. So this is always my rich raspberry sponge, and you notice it's a wedge that I've cut out of a sponge just like this. Then I've taken a piece of rich raspberry cardstock and the round tab punch, which is now retired, but you could just take a piece of rectangular cardstock and staple it on top of the sponge like that, and then you always know what color the sponge is. For the sponge daubers, I like to print out a label on our little label maker and put it on the side of the plastic tube, and you'll notice here they sometimes like to come off, so I put a little piece of tape here to just hold them on so I know. So I like to assign the colors to my sponges and not rinse them out each time. Alright, let's get started here. As I said, I have chosen rich raspberry ink, and we're going to be sponging onto a piece of whisper white cardstock to start with. And I want to start with the stamping sponge. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply dab it onto my ink pad, and it's you won't be able to see it because it's already dark, but there is ink on this sponge. And then all I'm going to do is just take and lightly sponge the edges. And as you notice, I'm kind of holding it at an angle as I do this. The more straight up and down you are, the less ink will be on the white paper. So this side here is with the sponge. Now I'll show you this part here with the dauber. And you also, the same thing, you ink up your dauber, and then you just kind of do the edges like so. And there we go. That's what it looks like. And as you can see with the dauber, you get much more control over where your ink goes. This one goes a little bit more on the paper. This is a much more defined line. This is a little bit more wispy and flowing. So that's the difference between the two sponges, but the action is the same. You just hold and you brush against the edges of the cardstock. Another way that you can sponge is on a piece of flat cardstock like so. And if I were going to do this for this sponge, I would ink my sponge up, and then I'm going to try it on scratch paper to see how dark it is. And if I want it to be a little lighter, I would dab my sponge off first on the scratch paper, and then I'm just going to lightly, and you see how I'm just kind of lightly using a back and forth motion. Or if you wanted a different type of texture, you can use a circular motion. And that puts just a little bit more ink onto the cardstock. Now here's what it would look like if you didn't daub it off with the scratch paper at all. So sponging is the kind of technique that you just kind of have to play with a little bit to get the feel for it and see what you like and what you don't like. So that's with a flat surface with the Stampin' Sponge. Now I'm going to flip my paper over and I'm going to show you some things that you can do with the sponge dauber. Again, you can brush it off on your scrap paper and then just take and brush. When you do that, you get little spots where your dauber touches the paper. So to get away from that, you can go like this. I'm using a circular motion, and I'm just going round and round and round with the sponge. And this is called burnishing, and it gives you a nice image. Now you can see here where I started with a full sponge, and as I worked out, I got less and less and less on the sponge. So if I wanted to get away from that, I would dab off on my scratch paper, and I would do a circular motion like so. Okay, now another fun thing to do with sponge daubers, because they are rounded, is you can make little circles if you needed to, for whatever reason. And they're kind of fun. So that's another way that you can use the sponge daubers. Or you could also go like this and just pounce them, like so. And actually, I'm going to switch back to my Stampin' Sponge. Let's go back over here. That's something that you can do here too. You can go up and down like so, and you get more of a model look. You see the pores of the sponge a little bit more this way. And this is really a cool way. I'm going to flip back over here. This is really a cool way to add a little bit of color to your cardstock, and I use that one a lot. So that is on a flat surface paper with a sponge dauber and the sponge.